I went to high school here in California. The campus that I was on had fences around it. It had police on campus. We called them narcs. It was a very different environment than where I came from. One day during my freshman year there, two guys got into a fight, and at first, people hear the commotion, people start crowding around. Before you know it, you have a huge crowd within a few seconds, basically. They keep fighting, and they're fist fighting and stuff like that, both on their feet still. And I'm looking around because, after the shock wears off, and the shock, you're looking around. I was looking around for some men to stand up, some guys to stand up and stop it and stick up for the guy who was obviously starting to lose the fight. And then the one dude gets on top of the other guy and just picks up his hair and starts slamming his head into the asphalt. And this had gone on. I don't honestly know how many seconds or minutes or whatever. It seems like a long time, and you don't always know what to do in that situation. But I was waiting for a man to stand up before I did something. And when he took his head and he started slamming it into the asphalt, I started to come forward. And just then the narcs came, the campus cops, and they broke it up. Now the visual on that was so difficult for me to deal with that, it stuck in my head. I made a decision there and then that I wouldn't wait. I would give a man in my environment maybe 5 seconds to stand up and do something, and otherwise I would have to. That obviously left an impression on me. I'm gonna tell you 2 stories that happened recently. I was doing my pennies down at the beach. I was done 9 o'clock at night. I waited for one bus for 30 minutes, never came. Somebody told me to go wait at a different bus stop. Went to the different bus stop, bus never came. Another 30 minutes goes by. And then somebody says, oh, the buses stop at 11. So now I'm freaking out because I have to catch 2 buses to get back to the park. So I'm walking up this path, and as I'm walking, there's like 5 teenagers in front of me. They're all sitting there on their phone, so I'm trying to get around them so I can get to the stop quicker. And just as I pull around them, some guy comes out of nowhere, essentially, and it's literally like flying in the air, and he hits this other dude. And he hits him so hard, they hit a door. Now, if they were just a few inches over, they would have just hit glass, and both of them would have ran into it. But it was a door, so they went right through the door, fell on the ground, and slid in there, and it was a Subway. So the cashier, she's like freaked out. She backs up, and now they're scuffling on the ground. So the guy who got hit, okay, he's on the bottom, the other dude's on top of him. So the bottom guy wraps his legs, okay, and bear hugs him, which was really smart, good presence of mind to do that. So the guy couldn't get a good shot in. So the guy on top's trying to push him off, and he's just holding on. And then all of us on the outside of this door, the teenagers, of course, pulling out their phone, let's get a viral moment. And there's some white guy over here that's maybe like 5'10", 5'11", but he's stocky, he's built. And then there's a black guy over here that's like 6'4", I want to say. And he's not like real thick, but he's built, he's big. He's got his girlfriend right next to him that was fairly tall too, but he was built, right? Those were the 2 guys that I instantly noticed. There was a 3rd guy in the back, but I didn't notice him quite as much. Then there was a lady in front of me, okay? Now, just as this happens, they go through the door, they're on the ground, they're scuffling. The lady in front of me, I didn't realize this till later, but I'm very grateful for this lady, because I think she really helped this situation. And she opens the door and she's like, get off him, you better get off him, the cops are coming, hurry, get off of him. And then she shuts the door, right? So now, instantly, I'm thinking of my high school experience. And so I turn to the white guy over here, and I turn to the black guy over here, and literally, I didn't physically count, but in my head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I go around the lady and I open the door, and in a deep, rough voice, as much as I can manage, I grabbed the guy who at this point had finally pushed off the other dude, and he got one shot in. So he hit the guy's bleeding, okay? Just as he did that, I grabbed his shoulders. He was in a hoodie, grabbed his shoulder. Get off of him now! And I threw him, you know, because he wasn't laying down. His feet were propped on the ground, and he was, you know, with one hand like that. So grabbed his shoulder, get off of him now! And I threw him towards the door. And again, thankfully, he was in the right position because the door just opened with the push of his body hitting it. And he goes outside. So now he's out there with the crowd, and I'm basically in here, but the door is still swung open. And now I did something, well, you may think the whole thing was stupid, but so then he's like, oh, I was gonna take that guy, and I'm like, dude, come on, seriously, a woman just took you off of him. Now that was stupid to say. That was really stupid to say in the situation, but there's so much that you see when you're out here, and there's so many fights, and there's so much physical violence, and there's so much trauma, and there's just so much. Ambulance is just a constant noise in your head, police sirens, you know, everything. So, you know, I shouldn't have said that because that was some bravado and that was stupid. But anyways, he's like, blah, 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 and he walks off, and I'm very grateful he did. I'm very grateful he did. I go over to the guy laying on the ground, and I try to help him, but I think he was embarrassed at that moment, and I ask him if he's okay, you know, and he's just trying to get up and get out of there. And I follow him a little bit. The whole crowd kind of follows him a bit. His stuff, so this was two homeless guys, right? His stuff was off to the side a little bit further up than this subway. And I ask him again, are you sure you're okay? Can I do anything to help you? And he's like, no, I'm fine. You know, just go, you know. So I'm still essentially with this crowd. I could see the lady who opened the door. She was a Latino lady. And she's like, wow, that was awesome. Good for you. Oh my gosh, you know, I couldn't have done that. Just then it dawns on me. I'm like, yeah, but you helped this situation. Like, I didn't even think about this. But later I'm thinking, man, she really helped this situation, because I think one of the reasons the guy just let that happen, and like, because he wasn't dead weight. When I pulled him, like, the momentum of his body went, and it could have been he thought I was a cop, so initially he wasn't going to antagonize me, but then once he was outside the door and saw that he couldn't really get back in the door unless he came through me and maybe another person who was standing close to the door at that point, then it was over for him. But I'm realizing that what she said might have really helped the situation, and so I thanked her. And then, you know, the black guy and his girlfriend were walking right in front of me. You know, he had a presence about him. He looked real strong. Honestly, he was beautiful. But he was strong, he was buff, he was 6'4", like I said. And I just looked at him, and I'm like, he's like, what? I'm like, what good is all of that muscle and all of that testosterone if you're not going to use it to help somebody, you know? And he's like, oh, well, it's not my problem. That guy could have had a knife, you know? And his girlfriend just looks at him and looks at me, and, you know, they walk off, you know? And honestly, I had my body, like, I wasn't risen in levels. I wasn't feeling any sort of way other than just a little bit of irritation. There was nothing. And then I just kept going for the bus, you know? And as I walked a little bit further, then it kind of settled on me. I did shake a little bit, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. I recognized, because even in past experiences, I never really shook after the fact. So, but I recognized, because he said, you know, that guy could have had a knife or a gun or anything else. And I recognize that. I do. So you can say that I'm stupid for what I did. And, you know. There's a famous YouTuber on here, and they actually did a video. I can't watch a lot of their content because they talk about things sometimes in a way that it's just, sometimes they swear or they're vulgar or whatever, and I try to stay away from that. But when I do get through a whole video, I love the guy's wisdom, you know, and his personality. But he actually did do a video on a girl that was being surrounded by men, and he was doing a reaction video to it, and he's like, yeah, I wouldn't step in. And man, I held him up here because of his wisdom, and then that just like, it deflated me, man. She was in such a precarious situation, and all 8 of these guys were looking at her up and down as if she was dinner, you know, as if they were about to assault her. And I watched another video where a woman was getting assaulted. A guy did step in, he got beat up, thing went to court, you know, and then the woman sided with the man who was assaulting her because it was her boyfriend. So this guy got beat up for nothing, all that trouble. So I see all these different sides to the argument, I really do. Somebody's on the side of the road with a broken down tire, something like that, you don't know who it is, drive past them, you know. And if I had children in the car, I would drive past them probably. But I've thought about these things a lot. And I think you're faced with that decision pretty immediately, right? What are you gonna do? Are you going to watch somebody possibly get killed, but if not, just beat to a pulp, and then live with that the rest of your life, knowing that you were just a bystander and you watched, you know? And again, I will also add the caveat that people get into such a state of shock that they don't even know what to do. And by the time they decide to react, it's late enough. Or people always think the other person's gonna act, so they don't do anything. There's a variety of responses. So I am really not trying to say, I'm definitely not trying to put myself out there as some sort of saint or anything like that. I am only expressing to you who I am and the things that I've thought about and the things that I've been through. And so for me, I feel like I have a choice. I can either watch that, or, you know, I can put my life on the line because I don't know if the guy's got something, right? And I think in some scenarios, like obviously if the guy's got a gun, then I don't walk towards him, right? Like there's other ways, maybe you negotiate, maybe you try different things. But in that scenario, you know, I already decided what kind of person and what kind of reaction I wanted to be. And again, I do understand, because man, if the guy did have a knife or something like that and just maimed me and I had to live with it the rest of my life, that's hard, right? So I get it, but my choice is to step in.